Hi class, how's your week? I hope you enjoyed the class module last week. We are going to continue to discuss classes, but this time about friend functions. Let's look at this money class. It is the same as was in your textbook, display 11.3. For this whole module, I'm going to use the example from the textbook for once. I think because the concepts are pretty complicated by now, you might be able to get more if the information is more related to what the textbook is talking about. Maybe that will help you. Give me feedback. Let me know if actually seeing more examples is better, or if using the same example from the textbook will help you better. But I think this example is good enough to also prepare you for further stuff down the road. Anyways, let's talk about this basic money class number 0. The first 3 functions, public functions, are constructors, like you might remember. The one without the parameters is the default constructor. And the first one, it expects 2 inputs. One is the amount of dollars as a long. Long is just a bigger integer that can hold a bigger, like longer integer basically. And the cents is just how many cents there are in the money. We can declare my money using $5.04. So when we call get value, it actually will output 5.04. We can also use this constructor to say it's only $5. When we use this input function, I think that's what you had to implement in your class also in the last assignment. We can use the function by declaring a object and then use the dot operator and then input and then pass in a valid input string. And so here I'm just using the cin, but it could have been just a input file stream as well that has been opened and verified, because that's what's the kind of precondition. If we look at the full declaration of this class, it expects a input of like negative, or it doesn't have to have a negative, but it will start with a $sign if there's no negative, and then the dollar amount with a dot, and then the number of cents represent in 2 integers always. Output will output something similar to this, and then also expects a output string. The private member variable is just one, which is all the cents that's calculated. So for example, here we will have 504 cents. That is the private representation of this money class. So what if we want to compare money? For example, is my money your money? We want to know if they are the same amount. What do we do then? So the first way to implement that is to just write a equal function that will take in 2 parameters, amount 1 and amount 2, and this is outside of the money class, and so it's just a regular function. So how would you implement it? We would just, because there's a get value, right, we can get the double amount, the double representation, the amount of the money. So we can just see if they are exactly the same by using the equality operator. But there is a better way, money class number 2. So we use something called friend function. What we did was just add the keyword friend in front of this function declaration, and then put it inside the class the definition. So friend functions, they are not a member function, but they can actually access your member variables. So like I said, your secrets are safe with me because we are friends. And so to show you this first, to implement, what we would do actually is we can directly access the all sends because we know because we are friends, so we can access the sends, the private variable, member variable, directly using the dot operator. So how do we implement, how do we define friend functions? Basically, you just put the keyword friend right in front of the definition and then move it into the class. And then in the implementation, you don't need to even use the friend keyword, and then you also don't need to have the class and then colon. And so it just looks in the implementation part. And then in the definition part, you move the definition from outside of class to inside of class, add a friend in front of the function definition. Sorry, I've been using definition, declaration, implementation kind of interchangeably. It's just it also is written that way in the textbook. But I will try to be more persistent when we talk about, okay, let me explain it again actually. So when we talk about just a regular function, we say declaration when we are just declaring how it's going to be called, but not to write the code of the body. And then when we defined it, we define a function, we have the body. But in a class situation, we would say that we define a class when we only talk about how it's going to be called, the functions, for example, or the member variables. But when we have the body for each function, we call it implementation. So that's just how that jargon works. So why do we want to use friend functions? We want to make it easier to write functions, make it easier for me to help you, makes it easier for your friends to help you. Yeah. So when would we be using friend functions? Because we like we see earlier, you can use friend function to do the same thing. You don't have to, but because it's easier, so there are some rules of thumbs that people use when they decide whether to use friend functions or non-friend functions, or make it a member function, for example. So when it involves two objects or more, when they are used symmetrically, but actually later on you will see that even not symmetrically, you can use a friend function also to make things easier for yourself. So when we say symmetrically, because we are using, basically the two amount has no, in a way, difference, right? When you say equal, or even you can do larger than, smaller than. It's kind of irrelevant in a way, which one is which. So to recap, we talk about friend functions. We talk about friends can share secrets. Friends are here to help with two or more objects of the class to resolve some things that you want to do. So next we are having a part 2. See you soon.